Hello everyone on YouTube. Yeah, I'm doing another video and it's been a while since I've done one. Since my the lady, some of those ladies you've seen on my channel have done some. I know she did one a couple of months ago, but this is me. I'm the one who owns the channel, so I've now got an iPad. So I'm actually going to now do some videos on here. So this one I'm doing today is about my spirituality, which is what is referred to or called as paganism. So what is that then? Well, originally it's a word that means countryside dweller, or so someone who live, or country dweller. So that's basically someone who would have lived, or still does live, effectively, in the countryside. And there's another word similar to that called heathen, which is spelt H-E-A-T-H-E-N. And that again is another term for someone who is not in the city, or is perhaps maybe someone who does not conform to the norm. Does not conform to the norm, or ascribes to the same spiritual practices as someone else. And basically that's both what those but that's paganism in the modern era has come to mean that. So I'm walking around my flat or my apartment, whichever you want to call it, don't mind which you call it. Now I probably will be doing a lot of walking around in this video, as I tend to do that as part of how I explain things and think things through. So don't genuinely be surprised by that. So I'm doing this in my bedroom mainly because my altar is in here. Excuse me a minute, guys. I was just making sure I had the volume of for my music right now. The music I've got on in the background is a sort of, well, I want to say a meditation CD, but I don't know if that's right, but I'll go with that anyway, called Walking with Merlin. And I'll show you the CD case just so you can all see it. So there, but it's released by a company, as you can see from the CD case, Paradise Music, and it's and these songs that are on there, there's only 7 of them, and they're created by a guy called Llewellyn. So the first one we've got on now, which is track number 1, which is called Merlin's Cave, Seeking Merlin. So, and the whole CD is called Walking with Merlin. Now, of course, Merlin does feature quite predominantly or heavily in the Arthurian legend. However, a lot of pagans have adopted him in the iconic image of perhaps maybe a druid, or maybe what we might call today the Gandalf or Harry Potter version of a wizard, perhaps. Anyway, so now you know what pagan means, and what. So what is paganism then? Well, a lot of people have tried that are pagan have tried, and there's many different variations of paganism, and what being pagan is today. So a lot of people have tried to explain this on YouTube already, and but basically, as I said, it's kind of, in some of the introductions, some of the other words that are associated with the paganism, it is basically not conforming to the norm religion. So it's not being part of organized religion like Christianity or Judaism or Buddhism or Sikhism or Islam, which has the followers known as Muslims, or perhaps maybe the Baha'i faith, or that of the Hindu faith, although they do have a pantheon. So there is, so perhaps it shouldn't be classed as an organized religion, but it is. And then again, of course, there are the pagan spiritual paths, and apparently they are getting more and more recognized, because more and more people are coming forward in censuses and things worldwide with their government saying, I am this, I am that, and so on and so forth. So there are many different pagan paths, and I'm going to add in some more modern ones perhaps. And to be honest with you, when it comes to the term neo-pagan, that means just a new, it's basically paganism, but it's a new path perhaps based upon perhaps some of the ancient or traditional paths that maybe some of our ancestors would perhaps have followed. So now mine is technically a new path, but I do not like the term neo-paganism because it is all, to me, all paganism, whether it's so-called neo-paganism or just paganism, to me it is all paganism. That is the main major umbrella term for me, and I never really liked the term neo-paganism or neo-pagan. So if anyone ever is walking around me and you are pagan and you class yourself as a neo-pagan, I will automatically correct you because it will get on my nerves. Just a word of warning. Not that I'm going to dictate to you, as it were, but just sort of let you know that it's something that does get me a little bit rattled. Now, so there are many pagan paths. There's traditional witchcraft, which is based on the original witchcraft, which a lot of people were, not just in America, when the American colonies were established back in history, but of course, obviously, even over here during the Tudor and Stuart reigns of the royal family, of the UK's royal family, there were such things as witch hunts and witch trials, and witches were either dunked in the water, or some of them were sadly burned at the stake, which is rather of a horrible, either one is a horrible thought, and all because they did not conform to, basically as it was at the time, as it was the predominant religion, or the heavily featured and mainly focused in the religion of the general populace. Witchcraft or any form of doing magic like that, and believing in different gods or goddesses and multiple ones or something like that, it was basically thought, in those days it was illegal, and if you were caught, you were either, you may have been beheaded, but commonly, the most common punishment for those who practiced magic was to be burned. But they would have, perhaps they might use the ducking stool at the trials or something, but still, yeah, they weren't very nice times to live in, so I'm glad I do not live in those times. And I'm glad that we have a much more open and diverse society, particularly here in the UK today, although there's a long way to go with that, so yeah. Anyway, so we've just said that one of the main pagan paths is the traditional witchcraft, which is a lot of what witchcraft today is based upon. Then, of course, there's witchcraft that is based on traditional witchcraft, which is a modern variation of it from the 60s. Now, a lot of people say it was actually started in the 1930s and 1940s, but it was not. Actually, but the person they equate it to is, of course, the correct person. Now, what actually happened was Gerald Gardner was actually officially initiated into a witch's coven, although he was a man, because witchcraft is traditionally associated with women, into a witch's coven in the 1950s. Now, no one is actually sure exactly when in the 1950s was, but it would have probably more than likely been sometime after the last UK, the Witchcraft Act was repealed here in the UK. Now, the Witchcraft Act was an act of government, and of course, obviously, the rulers of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, as it was then, that no one could legally practice witchcraft or any form of magic without prior, consent from the government, and of course, obviously, the king or queen, whoever was ruling. And they repealed it. I think the actual act, the last ever one of those acts, according to, it might be science fiction, but a 70s episode of Doctor Who, which is still going today, and the BBC have done it proud to keep it going. But some of us have got to keep it going because we're fans of it. Anyway, besides that, it was apparently repealed in the 1950s itself, so very early. In fact, I think apparently according to that episode of Doctor Who, which is called Demons, however you pronounce it, which is basically, it was repealed in 1950 itself. So after the 1950s, so sort of in the 1950s, witchcraft became kind of into its own. But anyway, this chap Gerald Gardner was initiated into this coven of witches, and after his initiation, he thought there were things that he liked about it that he didn't. That he would, if he could have started his own movement, he would keep. And there were things about it that he thought, well, if he did not like, then he would obviously remove them, and not if he created his own path and whatever, and his own version of witchcraft, then he would obviously remove it and not use it. So, and that's how we basically came into creating what we know today as Wicca. And of course, there are many different variations, and so yeah. But he is the essential beginner and creator of Wicca. Whether it's Alexandrian Wicca, Valentian Wicca, Gardnerian, which is based on the Gerald Gardner main ways of doing it, or perhaps it's Draconian or Starhawk Wicca, whatever, anyway. But Wicca is a very popular one. Druidry or Druidism is popular. It's even mentioned in one of the old Doctors from the 70s as well, with Tom Baker, which is an episode called, I believe, The Stones of Blood. So yes, that's another one that is very popular among people even today. There is, of course, also, I think that's really the main ones. Now, I'm going to add to this list that of the Path of the Jedi from Star Wars, because there is a Church of the Jedi. There's even a book about it called The Path of the Jedi, with an IST on the end for some reason, because the guy who wrote it is a total idiot, in my personal opinion. I said it like that because I want people to understand that this is my total personal opinion on it. Now, also, then there is obviously the darker side, apparently. There is a Church of the Sith as well, which is also the opposite to the Jedi in Star Wars, so if that's what you believe you are, then you are perhaps that. I mean, I like some of the aspects of the Jedi path and the Sith path, and there's other books that tell you a bit about that in different variations of, again, similar paths, darker or supposedly darker or supposedly lighter. But I incorporate a lot of different things from a lot of different paths. And again, so I class my path as wizardry, and that is not just a self-determined path, but I've been doing a lot of studying and things like that from about 2010 when I got into another apartment, which is different to the one a lot of the other videos would have been done in. But this is only a temporary one, so some of the videos may not even be done here. Some of the videos will be done here, and when it's time for me to move on to another apartment, better looking, better toileting facilities and all that sort of shite that we won't really go into right now in this video. Well, obviously, so yes, and it's based on lots of different ideas, and it's the archetypal sort of supposed version of what Merlin says in the King Arthur legend, which a lot of people call him a wizard. So, was he a wizard? Was he a druid? Was he a witch? I don't know. Even though I have done a lot of research, not just physical research, actually physically researching him and things and other things, but also I've also done research on a spiritual level, as he is supposed to be one of my spiritual ancestors, along with the Lady of the Lake, who also features predominantly in the Arthurian legends. So yes, and I've done other spiritual workings where I've found out who my actual spiritual parents are as well, and spiritually that is Zeus and Hera from the ancient Olympian and ancient Etnian pantheons of gods and goddesses. So that's their parents, which of course were the Titans, and of course their parents were Uranus and Gaia, or Uranus also has another name in Greek, but it's translated into English as Chaos. Now Uranus, of course, is the Roman. Some of the names are Roman, some of them aren't. But the Romans did actually nick a lot of their gods from the Greeks. So yeah, you've got a lot of contradictions there from the Romans. But they were the first sort of ancient people's kind of way of worshipping and having sort of divinities or divine power and divine beings that would rule over them in their lives and all sorts of things like that I learned about in primary school as a child. So that's predominantly so, and they've always kind of pretty much. I mean, it was in the junior time of my primary school, but I did they stuck with me for a very, very long time. And obviously, my school was mainly a Christian school because obviously we had assemblies, and a lot of the assemblies were mostly about learning about God and all that. Well, BS, I want to say, because it's... I don't want to offend people who are religious, or, you know, they're Christians who might be watching this and think, oh, why am I still in Christianity and why have I not found a better spiritual path for me? And I'll get to that later, why I went into paganism. So now my path is a mix of many different things, and also coming into that as well with magic itself. And a lot of people say that magic is, you know, some people are white magicians, some are black magicians, and some of us are grey magicians. Some, of course, are rainbow magicians, and that doesn't mean that we're, you know, that doesn't mean we have a connection to the gay pride flag for whatever reason, but I will go into that much later. But basically, so black magicians, they are people who do what we call black magic or dark or evil magic. Now, this is magic that is mainly about mostly harming other people, or other things and objects. So, or putting a hex on someone, or a curse, or a jinx, or forcing them to fall in love with you. You know, say for example, with one of my old neighbours in my other apartment, although he told me once that he only goes gay when he gets drunk, very drunk, and I mean absolutely paralytic or just really badly drunk, very, very drunk, I didn't believe that for 1 second, because I've held a feeling that he is in the closet and a homosexual, but that doesn't mean that he's not a lovely person. He was really, he was really attractive, and I found him a very nice guy to chat to even when he was sober. But his girlfriend was a witch, or at least the girlfriend he had at the time, and I got the feeling that something was off with her. And then he told me that she was a black witch in particular, and that's when I felt the energy go from him, and from her into him, and it was a very dark energy that I felt surround him. And basically I felt that she'd done a love spell that was suppressing who he really was. She was basically effectively, through that spell, forcing him to be straight or heterosexual when actually he's a gay guy, or a homosexual. Although closeted, I would never force myself on him or anything like that, or demand that he strip naked in front of me if he was still 100% straight, or that he might be bisexual, which means he likes girls and boys. Now, he might like guys more, he might like girls more, he might like both equally the same. But I felt that this was very wrong for her to do that with her boyfriend. If she really truly loved him, even as a black magician, she would have not cast that kind of spell. But obviously black magicians do not believe in that kind of stuff. Then obviously you've got white magicians, and they predominantly prefer, I like the black magicians, the colour of white, obviously, where black obviously prefers black. So they are magicians who believe that magic should only be white and pure, and that you do not ever use magic to harm, you only use it to heal. And that's where I don't like the Wiccan Rede. The last lines are basically, as it was originally written, in an old language, which I'm going to actually go and get a book, which I need to get, which is a book that has a handwriting book that I copied, basically a poem by, it is actually a poem, but it's also kind of sort of set of rules, if you like, by Doreen Valente. And there's quite a few lines, but the last line reads as this. Although some people mistranslate it and use the Old English language, the Oldie English as it's sometimes called, but it basically goes something like this. This is the last line. This is the last line of it. And if it harms none, do what you will. Well, actually, I've read that wrong. Sorry, so I'm going to just quickly reread that for you. So this is the last line, last sort of couple of lines. 8 words the witch's creed fulfill. If it harms none, do what you will. Now, that is white magic, effectively, and Gerald Garner liked it, and he had it in his Wicca. So Gardnerian Wicca, it heavily focuses in that. And then, of course, also again, the Valentine, which is the surname of obviously Doreen Valente, which is a version of her version of Wicca that's supposed to be better than Gerald Gardner's, according to all the stuff I researched and stuff. So yeah, and basically any other white magician who's not a Wiccan or a follower of Wicca witchcraft, if they're a witch or whatever, or druid, they will not do any supposedly harmful magic. They will only do healing type of magic. And then, of course, there's those of us what we call ourselves either rainbow magicians or grey magicians. Now, rainbow magicians and grey magicians are pretty much the same, but rainbow magicians feel that magic is always constantly colourful, so you will see different rays of grey, black, blue, green, purple, red, orange, brown, white, beige, gold, silver, turquoise, bronze, brass, etc., etc., and so on and so forth. And of course, obviously, but again, they are similar to us grey magicians in that we do not think that magic is only black or only white, basically, is what we sort of say. And obviously, that's why mostly it is called grey magic. And now grey magic, it takes both ideologies of both white and black, but it believes that magic is neither black nor white and is not either supposedly only good or supposedly only evil, or another term for those, of course, is supposedly only positive and supposedly only negative. Because what that means is that, but grey and rainbow magicians believe is that magic has a neutrality. It is neither one or the other, in other words. And what that means is that in the way of the grey magic, it is both white, positive, and black, negative. So, and it's the colouring thing. If you get white and black paint and you mix them together, you do get the colour of grey. So that's probably why it's called, it's got that connection. So obviously there is the real absolute total bonus of it being like that, where it does go, and obviously it takes in, so it takes in both ideals, so both good and bad, so it says that, so it doesn't say that magic is not only good or only bad, or only positive or only negative. Basically it says that grey magic is on the process of that it is both not only good, positive, but also bad, negative. So it has, and that's the neutrality. That is the duality, but it's a neutral duality. Like, we have differences such as, being a man or a woman, being feminine, being masculine. We have, and sometimes there are not just dual differences, but there are multiple differences. But anyway, point of the matter of the fact is that there are some differences in magic like that, and that's, that's how it works. And then it comes to, so that's effectively what the difference between the mainly three magics are. But obviously, and then of course, then you've got pagans who only worship really nature. So that's another path as well. And they don't do any sort of magic or anything. But they might petition a particular god or goddess, but rarely they do anything like that at all. But they class themselves as pagans because, again, they don't conform to any sort of organized religion. And all paganism is basically also ways of harmonizing yourself with nature. And as one person who I watched a video on today, who's a very fascinating and lovely, seems like to have a lovely energy. She's a lady or woman, whichever you want to call her. I'm going with both. Or a lovely person, and she does have a lovely energy. She is I'm not sure if she's from New Zealand or Australia, but in her video she does claim to be from Australia, and she also claims that she has previously lived and is planning to live again in Thailand. So anyway, but her channel is very interesting, and she has had a similar experience to myself in how I came into paganism, which I will go into a bit later in the video, hopefully, if I get there, I don't get sidetracked or anything. But she does say that she explains to people what paganism is, and that there are different paths. She doesn't give a list of what all the different paths are. She doesn't. But she's just very interesting. Person, I thought, anyway. And I don't know how I got onto one of her videos, but sometimes how YouTube does that, suggests another video in a list of sort of side list of other videos you might like to watch, or if you've got the autoplay on or not, but it still suggests the video anyway, the videos I should say. And anyway, so yeah, and I just thought it was really fascinating what she had to say. She didn't, she did state that she didn't say that magic is only white or only black. She didn't say that it was neutral either. She didn't, I don't think she really had to, because obviously I already knew that. So I suspect there are many of you out there who are wanting to know what drew me into paganism. Well, I won't say completely 100% brought up Christian, but I was kind of raised as that as a teen. And it was interesting because as I was getting older, I realised, as I was growing older and I was a teenager, so I was in puberty, I was liking boys in a sexual way. Not just in a sexual way, but other ways as well, but really liking them in that kind of, oh, they're really attractive, they're really gorgeous, and I would love to have sexual intercourse with another boy. So that was the first thing. And I thought, and then I found there was a Bible verse that says you shouldn't do that, even though it was the Old Testament. And then I felt, well, even though being Christian and being a follower of Jesus and what he's supposed to mean to the world and Christianity in general, and even supposed to be mean to the Jews, the Jewish people, or the Israelites as they apparently are called in the Old Testament. It felt really uncomfortable being and as I got older, I realised actually it's not me being, demons have infested me or whatever nonsense the church will tell you. So I just believe that is absolute nonsense. That's just my personal belief again. It just felt really uncomfortable being homosexual and being religious. So I thought, I can't have a spirituality where I am made to feel that basically it's wrong, it's not natural, and it should not be celebrated, basically. So yeah, there are some Christians, and at that time there were only a small handful, I can assure you, particularly here in the UK, of Christians who were accepting of it. And that's changing obviously nowadays because, of equality and diversity. But I still feel that somehow that it's not enough, and when I looked at paganism, I don't know how I thought because I wanted to find a different spiritual path that I could be comfortable with being myself and who I was and who I am, and it would accept me no matter what. And that's where paganism came in. And I saw something on Facebook, a post or something, and saying, if you're homosexual, that does not matter. We support you. It doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, bisexual, lesbian, transgender, transvestite, non-binary. Sorry, my music player at the moment seems to be playing up with one of my tracks on my CD I was telling you about at the beginning of the video. Now, so yeah, anyway, so I, so that was the sort of thing of, it doesn't matter, you can still, whatever higher powers you want to summon, whether it be a lot of higher powers, just one higher power, just two higher powers, whatever. Female, if you want to summon female higher powers, just male higher powers, you can do that. And it doesn't matter that you're gay or straight or bisexual or lesbian or transgender or transvestite or even non-binary. That is not what is taken into issue. What is taken into issue with that is the person the person is celebrated because they believe in magic and they believe in multiple higher powers and all that kind of stuff. So that was really kind of what drew me to it mainly. I mean, there were other things as well, but obviously so I was just checking to see where my microphone was. So yeah, that was mainly what drew me into it. And that was the main drawing factor. There were other factors, but I can't remember what they were. But that was the main one. So, and I did, you know, and I felt really comfortable with who I was, because I wasn't made to feel like it's, you know, it's not, you know, that and obviously they said, you know, it's natural to like someone with the same bits as well as liking someone with the opposite bits. So that was lovely to have that, you know, and people say that to me, and they accept me for who I was. So I thought, right, okay, if there's a spirituality that does that, then I'm gonna be wanting to go there with it. So yeah, that's basically, that was the main drawing factor. So that was it, really. And I started looking at, you know, as many pagan paths as I could find, and I felt and decided that what I need to do was basically do exactly the same with what Gerald Gardner did and how he created Wicca, and start my own, which I've done. Now that was about 8 or 9 years ago, and obviously since then but at the moment what I'm doing is I'm in the process of developing it. So it is an ongoing process. But if anyone wants to learn it from me as it is at the moment, which I will tell you, I will guide you and because there's also a spiritual element to it, but it's more of there's another spiritual path that I'm also developing at the moment, which is kind of ties in with this one, but this one is more of a personal development. But also there is a spiritual element to it, but that is more. There is still a learning curve and things like that, but that's as it is at the moment. It's, you know, but both are in development, so they are taking their time. And as I go through developing each one, I'm finding that somehow one develops better than the other. So, but they do sort of connect to each other and tie into each other. So I can always put that, you know, put them into each other, but I won't do it straight away. So also, if I don't know if you can see, oh, you can't, but I'm going to bring the camera down a little bit, and you can see this 7-pointed sort of star symbol that I'm wearing, and it's called a septagram. Now, this is like the pentagram. Sometimes you can get it also within a circle, like you can with the pentagram, which is in a circle called a pentacle, and that's called a septacle when a septagram is inside the circle. And the septagram represents not only apparently the higher self, but also the 7 elements of nature instead of 5. And when you draw, and I always do for me personally to remember the elements, it was much easier to do them in an alphabetical order. And it's just how I was able to then remember how to draw the septagram here. So what I'm going to do now is show it to you in the elemental order I draw it, which is at the top. So air at the top, down to earth, going back up and a little bit to the side for fire, going down from there to space, but that doesn't represent just like, you know, where our planet is in space and gravity and all that. It also represents sacred space, and other places and other sort of places that you feel that might represent a certain space, like your home space, your workspace, you know, just a place you go to relax, maybe when you meditate, maybe might be a sacred place. Then obviously we go across to, metal, first of all. So we start at air, so I'll start that again. So we start here at air, go down to earth, come up, and from earth we go up and across to fire, and a little bit up. We go down and then down a little bit to the side for metal, which of course is natural metal. Although it comes out of the earth, it is things that we use. We go across and across, keep going across, and we come to space. And of course, as I said, that's representing things like sacred space, home space, workspace, all kind of places like that. And of course, from there we come up and into time, and that represents not just history and things that happened in the past and that are currently going on, and you know how long this video is, for example, and the fact I'm wearing a watch, and it is, as I believe it's coming into nighttime, it is actually 20 to 7 in the evening. And then we go down again, crossing down to water. And then from water we come back up to air. And that's how you draw the septogram. But those are the 7 elements: air, earth, fire, metal, space, time, and of course water. So those are the 7 elements, and that, as I said, I always refer to them in the alphabetical order because it's easier for me to remember them in that way. And even with the 5 elements, it's still that way that I will refer to them alphabetically, because that just means that I can remember them more easier. So if I am going to teach you how to be a wizard, which is what I class myself as, then I will teach you the elements in that way. That is the 7 elements, not the 5. And I will teach you how to draw the septogram as well. Now on my wall here, which is where I've got my altar, I don't know if you can, if I turn the camera and you can see it there. See, I've put a septacle on the wall, and I draw that sometimes when I do a ceremony with either a wand or a staff. Now these are tools that you will learn, and I will do some more educational videos on this and talk about things like things you don't. I believe that you do not really need to do, like casting a circle. And there are reasons why I believe you do not actually need to cast a circle, and I'll come to that maybe in the next video. And in one of the next videos, I'm also going to tell you about the pantheon that I use, which is, of course, as I said, the gods and goddesses from Greek mythology, which they still exist, and people still channel them, so they do not exist. And invoke them and stuff, and I'm going to try and correct some things that people might say, and other people have seen said in their videos, perhaps. But this is my first actual YouTube video as me, and this is basically what I do as this is my pagan path, and this is how it works. And well, actually, I'm going to keep on until the CD is finished, because that sounds like it might be more fun. So, what is the training process to be a wizard then? Well, I've decided to go tying with the 7 elements in nature, that there are 7 levels of training. So level 0, which is what we call a beginner. So because like when you're born, you basically start with nothing. And now this might sound a bit rude or a bit sexualized, but it isn't. There is no intention of making it sexual or anything sex about it. But there was a term I came across long ago when I was first studying and everything, and learning, and all that, called skyclad. Now this basically means you can do your magic or do the ritual or ceremony or whatever the magic might be that you wish to achieve, and the result you might want the desired result you get from doing it, and you can do it, if you wish, completely naked, and that's what that means. So I felt that was an important thing for this path, this first path. But you get naked not only connect you to the earth and all the other things, but also because it shows respect to not only the one who is teaching you, but also to the higher powers, such as the Greek gods and goddesses. So it shows respect to everything, including nature and the spirit realm and your ancestors and everything, because we are all literally born naked. We are all born shower naked. So when we're showering, we've got no clothes. I mean, we can't shower in our clothes. So we don't have sex in our clothes. I mean, some people do the extreme and not take their socks off, but most people do take off all of their clothes when they have sex as well. So we get shower naked for sex. We are born shower naked. And it kind of reminds you that when you're born, and the idea also behind that is you starting the path, learning naked as you go through each level from 0, is that also not only that, but you were born into this world with nothing. So therefore, the closer you get at the end of the training, obviously robes and a curved pointy hat, which is a different hat to a witch's hat, which is just a circular pointy hat. Now wizards do wear pointy hats. We do wear circular pointy hats, but ours are curved as they go into the point. And I'll explain about that in more detail later in another video, perhaps. But yes, so, and your clothes that you get at the end of it, you are effectively robed and given your clothes as a wizard, including your curved pointy hat. So that is also that, because you are robed by your teacher. Then after that, when you achieve, so there's 7 levels, as I said. So 0 is the beginning level. Then you get up to level 1, and that's kind of, you are becoming a wizard, but you are still level 1. So you're at 0, you are level 1 in training. Then you reach level 1, and then you begin your level 2 training to achieve level 2. Then again, you reach level 2, you start your level 3 training, you reach that, and then you can reach level 3. From level 3, you start your level 4 training, and you reach level 4. Again, from there, you start your level 5 training, you reach level 5, you start your level 6 training at level 5, you reach level 6, and then you do your 7th and final level of training. The training gets you to level 7, which is your final level. And then, at that point, you work legally, at least legally by me, and officially recognized and qualified as a wizard. And you are classified as a wizard from that moment on, because you've completed all the necessary training that there is that you need to know to be a wizard. So then from there there is more training that you can do, which is the priesthood that I've worked out. And there are certain levels, which I won't go into what they are now, because it will make the video way too long. And I know not everybody likes to have a too long a video on YouTube. So, but there's a, so you go on, if you wish to get into the priesthood of wizardry, you can, you have to become a wizard first. Then you can take the priesthood training. So from that, and then obviously you do all the training, and you get to what my level is, which is of course the highest level of wizardry, priesthood, and that is basically who is the leader of an order, which is, an order is a group of wizards, a collective group of wizards. So then you become the leader of the order, and you can then teach others. You can train other people. But any of the other priestly levels below that you cannot. You can help, you can teach them, but you cannot actually officially initiate them as a wizard or anything else like that, or perform a hand fasting ceremony or a blessing for children, or any other sort of important ceremonies that are big. So yes, but you can do, once you get to my level and my position, then you can do all of that. Now, unlike Jeremy Gardner with his path, with Wicca, there obviously it's male predominant. I've decided it. I think it's mainly because I'm homosexual, but it is going to be male predominated, predominantly male. Have a male hierarchy, but not in the pantheon that I use. So in the pantheon side of things, there is, there are gods and goddesses, which of course, as I said, are the Greek gods and goddesses from the Greek mythology, or the ancient Greeks that the ancient Greeks used to worship. And I feel that's the more fairer way of making the divine both not only feminine, but also masculine. And it allows people to have both feminine and masculine as divine. But not only that, but it allows you to be both, even if you are homosexual or bisexual or lesbian or, mainly I'm talking mainly to men of the rainbow flag here, and straight men as well if you wish to do this path. So if you're bisexual, straight, homosexual or gay, homosexual also known as gay, or you're a trans man, and you have had your boobs removed, but you still have, even if you have had your vagina removed and you have a full-blown working penis and testicles, or even if you do not have, even if you still have a vagina, then that's fine as well, because obviously I'm not going to exclude you, and it really doesn't, and it gives you, you can call on any one of those of them, the gods and goddesses of the ancient Greeks, because you can you can summon a god, and yet you can also summon a goddess, or both of the, one of each will appear to you for whatever reason, you or a group of people together. You can even put representations of all of them, both the female and the male, on your personal altar, which I will tell you about all of that in another video. But there's so much you can do, and there's so many other things you can have as representations, and how you can represent the elements and things, and but yes, there is just quite a lot of things that we need to look at in more videos, but basically, and there are plenty of tools that I can list for you. as well. There are absolutely there are so many tools to list as well. So, but that is again something I will probably look at in another video of listing tools and other things. So, you know, there's just so much to do, you know, learn and show you, and there's a lot to. Phew, almost thought I'd get out of it then. There's a lot to show you, and of course, obviously, that's something that obviously we have to. You know, in the next, hopefully, in one of the next videos, I will go through all of everything that I need to. Go through you all, which obviously I will try and do if I can. Which obviously I will really daringly try to do. And yeah, but I don't just channel only one god or one goddess at a time. I do channel whichever one, you know, whichever any of them come to me. But I mean, I have had other gods and goddesses come to me from other pantheons, and that's been wonderful as well. But my main predominant focus has been on the gods and goddesses of the ancient Greeks. And, you know, their spiritual energies are still alive today. So, yeah, this is obviously where, for everyday life things, you know, I will constantly call on them, invoke them in some way, shape or form, as well as the 7 elements of nature. And if need be, sometimes I may even invoke perhaps an ancestor or someone who's, you know, a family member who has perhaps maybe recently passed or is, you know, has passed a long time ago. But yes, so there's a lot to go through and perhaps maybe work out and identify with and figure out. And there's a lot of magical creatures to tell you about in the history of magic. And other things like that. So about, you know, and not just about the history of magic itself, but when I go through all the different tools required to do magic, or that, you know, that will help you do magic, then obviously I will go through perhaps maybe their history of those tools. So and they're significant in not just what they represent, you know, if they represent perhaps a particular element or elemental energy or a particular god or goddess or whatever it might be. There will be some tools I may not be able to show you what they look like, or maybe up to if I can get an internet picture on my phone. But obviously I'm doing this on my iPad, so I cannot, unfortunately, edit these videos, so I have to do them as they are. And now obviously what I've done with all the other videos in the past before is obviously I have, of course, obviously watched them back, see what I think of them, you know, and I've either kept them or uploaded them to YouTube. But this one is obviously going to be uploaded to YouTube. This is probably one of the longest videos I will have ever done for a YouTube video. I'm hoping they're not going to be too long, but what I may do is do a video when it comes to perhaps maybe teaching about the tools. I will probably do a video on just one tool, because that will be easier. Obviously, when I do the videos about the tools, I will not have my face in the videos, because the camera will be facing so that you can see only that particular tool. Now, some tools you can put on others and so on and so forth. So, you know, but obviously as time goes on, I'm hoping that, you know, each video will not be too long if it's a subject video like that. And also that those videos will be, you know, short to the point and very easy to understand, and they'll be, you know, just right and well, you know, informative but not too informative, and but they'll, you know, they'll be done so that you can, so that any Tom, Dick or Harry, if you'll excuse using that well-known phrase, can basically understand it, you know, or some people call it, understand it, you'll be able to understand it even if you're a layman. So if I will do my best to put it in simple or layman's terms, and you should, hopefully, fingers crossed, everybody, be able to understand what I've been talking about. And I'm going to say to you all that I have actually, although this has been a bit of a long video, even though I've been talking for quite a while, according to my iPad, which is over 51 minutes, I have enjoyed making this video. It's the first one like this I've made about my spiritual path, and I have really enjoyed making it. And I will ask that the gods and goddesses of in all of Greece, I would say today, and ancient Greece as well, will bless each and every one of you, and good night for now.